All right, I will go ahead and call the meeting to order, and I will go ahead and I realize I'm a black screen right at the moment, but I will work on my camera. So if I believe is him, I believe all the council members are here. So Michael, do you mind taking over the meeting once Austin starts his presentation, and I will log out and come back in, and hopefully my camera will come back on.
Sure. Yeah, I can do that.
All right, so I'll turn it over to Austin and I'll be right back.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, everyone. Joining me is Kelsey Hulse from Strategies 360. She's our lobbyist, and I know many of you know her as well. Thanks, Kelsey, for joining tonight. We really just wanted to circle back post-session. We had come to you, feels like a year ago, it wasn't that long, to talk about our own city legislative priorities and then also the shared legislative priorities. So this is just a report on some key outcomes, how the session went, and at the end, Kelsey will talk about sort of what's ahead and some changes to expect. So I've got a few slides I'll share just to guide us through the discussion. Let me see if I can do that easily. Let's see. Okay, I think I can see the slides. Perfect. Thank you. And so just at a high level, I want to talk about just the key outcomes from our own legislative agenda and then the shared. The first one, which was a new ask, was for the Craft Brewing and Distilling Center. That was the integrated malt system, which will help fill some regional gaps in the brewing and distilling ecosystem that we're helping to build and support, and also tie together our facility as an anchor with the Tenino Ag Park as another anchor. So that was exciting that got funded for $255,000. And then our sort of leading ask was the Bush Prairie HCP economic development ask, and that unfortunately was not funded. We'll talk about some key takeaways from that on the next slide. As you may recall, we had a $4 million ask, and that was a joint ask between the city, the port, and the city of Yelm as well. So we'll dig in a little bit more into that in the next slide. And then we had some really good wins with the shared legislative agenda. The Bud Inlet remediation and restoration request received $2.2 million. And then the Young Child and Family Center for North Thurston School District received $1 million. So those are the notable outcomes, both good and a little bit of bad with our HCP ask. So we spent a lot of time working with Kelsey on this ask, and as you may recall, we brought Kelsey on board pretty quickly, pretty close to the session. So we didn't have a lot of time to ramp up like we had hoped. But I think key takeaways, just based on our discussions and feedback from legislators, we really need to increase our engagement leading into the session. And that speaks as much to the complexity of the ask in the HCP more than anything. It's just a really difficult and complicated topic. And as a policy tool, as a mechanism, it just takes a lot of engagement to fully explain what it is we're asking for, how it will work into the grand scheme of things. And so I think as we look at next session, we really want to increase our engagement leading up to that. We got really good questions from our legislators and our representatives, but it's just difficult to accomplish in a 15-minute meeting or a series of 15-minute meetings. So I think doing that groundwork as early as possible and as much as possible will help us for our next round. The other thing we kept hearing repeatedly was that folks really wanted a request with a specific property, a tangible asset in mind. We just were unable to say we were going to buy X property with these funds. There's not much on the market for land that can also be used for mitigation, because that's the same land that's being pressured by development. So it's the whole chicken and the egg thing we keep talking about. But I think just to make the ask as clear as possible and easy to understand, it will help us if we're able to come up with a property. that's available for purchase and that we can hold on to a little bit and apply a direct ask to. And then the other thing that we're still sort of figuring out, still evolving, is finding the right home for this request. It's an economic development request. It's a carbon sequestration request. It's a lot of different things wrapped into one. And I think that made it sort of difficult to find the right opportunity at the right time. There are multiple opportunities we can apply it to, but I think at times that made it easy for folks to say, well, why don't you just redirect that ask over here or over there? And so we'll talk a little bit about some of the future funding sources we're looking at. But these were some of the things that I think just lessons learned and that we're looking forward to applying next year that really rose to the top. Kelsey, was there anything else you would add to that?
No, I think that was a good summary, Austin. And many of the issues that Austin has noted here are tied to the request as a capital ask, and capital requests generally being tied to a thing, right? Much like the brewing and distilling equipment. And so trying to find the right place for either a capital ask tied to specific property or a programmatic ask tied to some of the benefits of the habitat conservation plan is the work of the next few months in this interim.
Yeah, thank you, Kelsey. And lastly, we are continuing to look at every funding source possible, especially for the HCP. One of the ones that is becoming more and more feasible, it looks like, will be around carbon sequestration funding. Prairies are a known carbon sink to varying degrees, but they are used for that. There is language in some programs that look like they're coming through Commerce, maybe Ecology, around funding the restoration of prairies or the converting of other uses into prairie as a carbon sink. So going to continue to look for those. Hopefully we can combine that with a capital request for a specific property. We're continuing to look at the market and talk to folks who may have land. And then also there's just a lot of exciting momentum around the brewery right now in the brewery district and the Washtop property. And so just continuing to move those along and get those closer to a better place for a legislative request and laying that groundwork as we lead up into the next one. So Kelsey, I wanted to just hand it off to you and let you talk about some of the bigger picture things and some changes that are coming up.
Thanks, Austin. Yeah, we had first, I just want to say thank you both for the time here and for our work together. Austin and John in particular certainly put in some good work this past legislative session, making the case for Tumwater's priorities and for kind of the future of the city and what we need to do, what the state needs to do in order to support that work. So I think you all were really well served, and the city of Tumwater was well served by their work in that regard. We, as Austin mentioned, certainly do see the benefit of getting started much earlier on these requests. When I came on board with the city, the agency request process attached to the budget had already completed. We already had a draft governor's budget that had been released. So that makes it difficult to sort of get started at that point, engaging in that budget development process. So certainly there will be an advantage to getting started sooner. Looking ahead, this past session was our long session, 105-day budget session. And so next year will be a short 60-day session. I am anticipating that many of the conversations that were central to this year's session will again come back next year. So we'll hear a lot of information and a lot of conversation around things like climate and housing and behavioral health and sort of issues broadly related to those. This year's 60-day session, there will not be a development of a new budget. And so we have a biennial budget session. So what we're looking at now is in the dollars that have already been appropriated, particularly through the greenhouse gas auctions into the natural climate solutions account if there's an opportunity to engage with agencies that are stewarding those dollars to see if something like a prairie carbon sequestration project is something that they would consider for those already appropriated dollars. So that's really our kind of next step. The other thing that I just wanted to highlight, and we all live in the same community, so this is something that we hear a lot about and can't ignore given our proximity to the Capitol, but there will be a lot of political changes coming about in the next couple of years. Some big campaigns that we'll be running, and certainly taking a lot of focus and a lot of energy. But we will see a new governor. So the governor's race obviously is starting to heat up, and we've had a number of people declare. I think there are probably 30 declared candidates at this point, but certainly a handful of front runners, and we'll see how those races start to take shape over the next few months. And then there's a lot of trickle down sort of related to the governor's race. So we'll have a new attorney general, we'll have a new commissioner of public lands, we'll have a new insurance commissioner, and then a variety of state legislators as well. So that's something that we'll be keeping a close eye on, and just making sure that as new folks are coming into leadership positions, as new folks are taking on new roles at the legislature, that we are doing that early work to make sure that they understand the priorities for the city of Tumwater, and that they are aware of those prior to the session even beginning, so that we have laid that groundwork and can be successful in moving those issues forward. And I don't, other than that, I am happy to answer any questions that anyone has. And just want to reiterate again that it really was a pleasure working with Austin and John this session. Got to work really closely with them and really appreciated that time. They both put in a lot of hard work for the city, and we were really happy to do it.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Any questions? Oh my goodness, this is really easy. Councilmember Swartha?
I just want to thank them for their work as well. Trying to navigate the capital budget request project process is interesting at best. And so, and as you said, but starting earlier on the ask, it probably helps a little to get in a little bit earlier. So, but yeah, just I know that the Representative Dolio was interested in the gopher piece because she understands how essential it is to Tumwater in our area and all, and as well as climate and all the things that you were talking about, how you can get more than one thing out of that purchase of land. So so I think there was some interest there. So from the LD22, but yeah, working on the other ones. So yeah.
John?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. I think we first off appreciate Kelsey coming into this sort of also late, and that was on us, not on her. But she brought some creativity and energy and different sort of thinking about our asks. Obviously, the gopher one is an unusual one. And it's going to require creativity in figuring out how that happens. We have some others, like just about anything we ask for related to brewing and distilling gets support. People know that project, they've seen it, they've been part of it. The price is right. So those are pretty easy asks. The $4 million, even though it makes all the sense in the world to us, requires a lot of storytelling. And the folks who live around here who are used to the story have heard it, but we have to remember that in other parts of the state, when we start talking about gophers, people are like, "Are you serious?" So yeah, just a lot of work, and we'll continue, and with Kelsey's help, try to figure out how to be creative in moving something forward there, because it is important. So again, thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, both Austin and Kelsey. Any other questions or comments? All right. Wow, that was the only thing we had on the agenda. So we're going to be now going to Mayor's City Administrative Report. This might be a record meeting.
So I have just a quick question and just a reminder for everyone. The city agreed to put $275,000 into the Housing Authority's project on Capitol Boulevard, the Tumwater Inn and Suites, to help make that project happen. The Housing Authority has actually received more money than they asked for. Commerce had some additional money available and made that available to the Housing Authority. The question for us is, and I think when Craig Chance was before us talking about this project, there are some tenants who are currently in that building, and renovation requires those tenants to be relocated. And the question that has been asked of us is whether we would be okay with some or all of the $275,000 being used for relocation assistance for the folks who are eligible and living in that unit. Again, we can only provide relocation assistance to folks who meet the constitutional definition of the poor and infirmed. People who wouldn't qualify for that, we can't offer relocation assistance. But it's sort of a stumbling block at the moment for the Housing Authority because they can't use the state money for relocation assistance because it's general fund, although it started as ARPA dollars, it's now general fund dollars. It would be something that we could use to pay relocation assistance. So the question to you is if you're okay with us using that money for relocation assistance, and just sort of looking for any questions or concerns. Otherwise, we would proceed in that direction.
Councilmember Dowell.
Thanks, Mayor. John, would the priority be to find, to use, start over, would the priority be to keep them in Tumwater since they're in Tumwater now, or is it just to find any housing?
I imagine it would be any housing within this area. Some of these people may have family connections or whatever in this area. So I don't know that it would be specific to Tumwater. The more we do that, the more limiting it becomes.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Councilmember Althauser.
Yeah, thanks. I think it makes sense. We've already kind of penciled these dollars to go to support this project. This is supporting the project and making it more successful in a different way than we originally envisioned, but one that I think makes it a stronger project overall. If we didn't use the dollars in this fashion, my assumption would be that we would use them on the other project that we're working on regionally, most likely. And that one we already have a chunk of funds already committed to. We're basically splitting our ARPA between this project and that project on Franz Anderson Road. So, that was sort of the delineation in my mind, was that we want to stretch our dollars where we can to have impact on multiple projects, and kind of having some dollars in the game on the Housing Authority project. I think is also just philosophically important to me because it's happening within the borders of our city. Like, I like the idea of us continuing to be at the table of that project as a stakeholder and as a contributing stakeholder. So contributing in this way makes sense to me.
Anybody else? Any questions or concerns? Otherwise, we will proceed down this path and allow them to use it for relocation assistance. Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Okay. Any other, and that was it, John? All right. I just have a couple of things. A reminder that our new city administrator, Lisa Parks, will start, her first day will be Friday. So already have a jam-packed day for her already. And then next week, our city council meeting has been canceled. 4 of us will be attending the Association of Washington Cities Conference in Spokane. And so I'm sure we will come back with a lot of really good information and items to share. So, all right. Is there anything else? I think that's it on the agenda. Oh my goodness, I think this might be a record. All right, with that, I do not see anything else. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.